Hey y'all, welcome to Q's Corner, where one girl shares her opinion from her little corner of the world. I'm in a little different setting in a little different corner of the world today. I am traveling to go see a concert, but I wanted to finally put my 2 cents in on the Fani Tainment. I know I'm a little late to the party, but here we go. I actually did not want to talk about Fani herself in a sense. I wanted to talk about Judge McAfee and something that has vexed me about his decision. And it's not actually the decision itself, because I didn't expect Fani to be thrown off the case. It is the words that people have been using to describe his decision, which is splitting the baby. Y'all, that has vexed me. And I'm going to tell you why. It's vexed me because Judge McAfee is no Solomon. I'm sure you saw my title. I'm sure you saw the thumbnail, so you knew what I already thought. But he's no Solomon. Solomon was not trying to split the baby. Solomon never intended to split the baby. Solomon was a wise ruler who prayed for the Lord to give him wisdom to rule his people well, and God granted him that. And Solomon was using that to determine whose child the baby actually was, because he knew the real mother was never going to let her child be killed. Don't believe me? Some of you who may not know scripture well, we're going to look at the story. It is in 1 Kings chapter 3, verses 16 through 18, and it reads, Then two women who were harlots came to the king and stood before him. The one woman said, "O my lord, this woman and I live in the same house, and I gave birth to a child, and while she was in the house. It happened on the third day after I gave birth that this woman also gave birth to a child, and we were together. There was no stranger with us, only the two of us in the house. This woman's son died in the night because she lay on it. So she rose in the middle of the night and took my son from beside me while your maidservant slept, and laid him in her bosom, and laid her dead son in my bosom. When I rose in the morning to nurse my son, behold, he was dead. But when I looked at him carefully in the morning, behold, he was not my son whom I had born. Then the other woman said, No, for the living one is my son, and the dead one is your son. But the first woman said, No, for the dead one is your son, and the living one is my son. Thus they spoke before the king. Then the king said, The one says, This is my son who is living, and your son is the dead one. The other says, No, your son is the dead one, and my son is the living one. The king said, Get me a sword. So they brought a sword before the king. The king said, Divide the child in two, give half to the one and half to the other. Then the woman whose child was the living one, spoke to the king, for she was deeply stirred over her son, and said, "Oh my lord, give the living child, give her the living child, and by no means kill him." But the other said, "He shall neither be mine nor yours. Divide him." Then the king said, "Give the first woman, the living child, and by no means kill him. She is the mother." When all Israel heard of the judgment which the king had handed down, they feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to administer justice. Y'all, that's not, in my opinion, what Scott McAfee did. I actually asked the question because, as you all know, because a lot of you have seen me in the chat, in fact, some of you who subscribed to me met me first in the lead attorney's chat and have followed, and we now have a lot of different chats in common. But the lead attorney did a review when Ashley Merchant was on Megyn Kelly's podcast, or YouTube channel rather, and Megan and Ashley Merchant said that judges will do anything to pass the buck, basically, to not have to make a decision. And my question in that chat during that time was, why be a judge if you don't want to judge? And I'm sure, again, some of you saw the lead, and I will probably have clips in here going, either link at least that particular clip to it. The lead was like, there are various reasons that people do it. And some of the reasons that were given were, and the top one actually turned out to be money, prestige. Well, top ones turned out to be money, prestige. But we know that judges are called to do just that to judge between right and wrong. We have three branches of our legislature. We have the executive, judicial, and the legislative branch, and they are all supposed to be checking one another. And the judicial branch is where we go to have our cases heard after the other branches basically have decided they want to do what they want to do. That is the way it works in our society. But just historically, people have had judges, and they've um, had to decide various things. Moses was judging the people. And then I believe it was set, but somewhere between 70 and 72 people that he had to help him judge. And it is something that's taken very seriously because the judge, along with prosecutors, they have people's lives in their hands, literal life and death. And we know that Romans 13 tells us that we are to be subject to our rulers. And it tells us that our rulers are there to punish the evil and to reward the good. We're going to take a look at that too. Every person is to be in subjugation to the governing authority. Sorry, y'all, I learned this in King James, so it comes out sometimes instead of me reading. For there is no authority except from God, and to those which exist are established by God, and those which exist are established by God. Therefore, whoever resists authority has opposed the ordinance of God, and they who have opposed will receive condemnation upon themselves. For rulers are not a cause of fear for good behavior, but for evil. Do you have no fear of authority? Do you want to have no fear of authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise from the same. For it is a minister of God to you for good. But the one who practices evil, but if you do what is evil, be afraid. For it does not bear the sword for nothing. For it is a minister of God, an avenger who brings wrath on the one who practices evil. Y'all, that is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to punish the evil. They're supposed to reward the good. And in this case, the defendants who are being accused of evil, let's be honest, they're being accused of evil. They're being accused of doing something that's illegal. That's a whole nother stream because sometimes things that are illegal are not actually evil, but they're being accused of something evil. They are being subject to the state. Well, now they're saying they're accusing the prosecutors of doing something evil, and they are asking that the same standard the prosecutors be held to the same standard, and that's not what happened. Judge McAfee was not Solomon. He was not being wise. Judge McAfee was kicking the can down the road. Rather than judge himself, he would rather have passed that judgment on to someone else, which is what he did. We all read the decision that he came out with, and though he gave Fani and Nathan an opportunity, one had to recuse themselves. One could stay on, one could not. That's not really splitting the baby, that's splitting hairs, because they both told the same stories. So how do you find that one was guilty of lying and the other wasn't? I digress, though. What he did was he said, hey, choose ye this day who's going to stay on the case and who's going to go. And Fani, of course, we knew she was not going to recuse herself. So Nathan wrote his love letter to her to break up with her on this case. And then she wrote her love letter back to him, and it was XOXO. And then he, through the rest of the decision, decided he was going to basically lay out all of the reasons both of them should have been kicked off the case so that the appellate court could decide. He knew they were going to appeal, and he wrote his decision so that he would not have to decide. So, y'all, for me, that reminded me more of the story of Barak in Judges, where Deborah was judging Israel. And Deborah told Barak that he was to go and he was to defeat the enemy. And Barak told her that he was not going to war unless she went to war. And for that reason, Deborah said, okay, I'll go to war with you. I'll go out onto the battlefield with you. But the victory will belong to someone else. And it's going to belong to a woman because you are basically you're not manning up. You're not doing what you're supposed to do. And that's what I think Judge McAfee did. He didn't man up. He didn't want to face the consequences. He didn't want to face the potential backlash of making an actual decision. So he decided to kick the can down the road and have someone else do it. And that, y'all, was not what Solomon did. It's not what he would have done because Solomon wanted to judge the people rightly and wisely, and he did. And for that reason, Judge Scott McAfee, is no Solomon. Let me know what y'all think. Again, one girl giving her opinion. I'm not always right, but I hope to be God honoring. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. Let me know what you think um in the comments. I'm not sure if this is going to be a premiere. So guys, this is going to be a one and done because I'm doing all of this other stuff. But let me know what you think. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you guys for listening to this one girl in her crazy corner, giving her crazy opinions. I appreciate you all, and until next time.